actually enjoy the sort of more pedestrian materials that are not commonly used.
Literally the bristles from the broom.
I'm Gwyn.
And I'm Larry. Gwyn's an engineer and an architect.
And you?
Just simply an architect.
Well, maybe I'll start the story. I'm from Britain originally. I went to UCLA Architectural School. In the beginning, I was the person that was bringing in the various contracts, and a lot of those contracts were generated out of the fact that I had both engineering and architectural skills.
When I went to Italy, like any graduate student looking for an interesting thesis, and one day in the library I found the name Scarpa. Well, just the connection of the name. I studied Scarpa, and I was at the Center for International Studies of Andrea Palladio, so I became somewhat of an expert on Palladio as well. And Scarpa always said that he really was getting his hands in the work, and I guess in some way that has had an influence on me.
The firm started in 1984. Larry joined me in, I believe it was 1988. I was looking for somebody to really help me out and to elevate the level of design that was happening, and I put an ad in the paper.
I was in San Francisco at the time, and my wife had just got accepted to graduate school at SciArc. And like a good husband, I just followed her down here, and I needed a job. I had been in other offices, like Paul Rudolph's in New York, and I was ready to do my own thing.
In the early 90s, we started getting a lot of this adaptive reuse office space.
We literally broke into the commercial interiors through engineering. The building owner needed a doorway cut between two buildings, and we said, we can do that. And it turned out to be one of our big clients in the end, Bedford Falls or Stony Road Productions. What was happening is these directors, they became like free agent sports stars. The studios would cut a deal with them. Here's X amount of dollars. Go build yourself a studio, but remember, we want you shooting that film in like 15 weeks. And that's where we came in, you know, because they wanted a great space, but it had to get done because they had to get working. We would sometimes start construction within a week. We'd do something, and literally within a day or two it would be built, and that became an existing condition for us. And it, you know, you had to do it on budget, so we had a lot of creative freedom. You know, when we bring up things like ping pong balls, that's kind of where we really made our mark. Suddenly, wow, these guys can do stuff really nice, but they do it fast too.
The way that we managed to work that and do it so quickly was that we almost solved the technical problems and the program problems first. And that allowed us then to create almost the skeletal frame. We take a building and create structures within that building.
I love doing the interiors. This is the conference rooms. There are two of them, and we've always worked really hard to make the lighting go away, to make the air conditioning ducts go away, and leave it exposed and not see that stuff running all over the ceiling. That's what people really responded well to, is that they could sort of capture the essence of the rawness of the shell that was there before anything was done.
One of the things that we do in this office is experiment with materials. That quality of play or experimentation, I think, is tremendously important.
The company is called Creative Domain. It was a large commission for us, 2 floors in an office building, and one of our first clients who was really expecting something from us too, you know, where we were used to making something out of nothing. And I was a bit nervous I had some ideas, but I didn't want to tell him. Somehow he got it out of me. I said, well, I'm thinking Dixie cups. And he laughed at me just like that. And he said, we're not doing Dixie cups in my office. And right away we built a little mock-up and emailed it to him. He said, wow, that's really beautiful. What is it? I said, well, those are Dixie cups. He goes, well, I'm going to have to talk to my people, And he made us give him like 500 extra cups because he was worried, what happens if they don't make Dixie cups anymore? He used them to change them in and out.
Technology is now allowing us to do things that we could never do before.
We did a dressing room made out of shrink wrap. I was driving home one day and I passed by this auto mechanic shop that's right by my house. I saw the sign on his building that said, "We'll shrink wrap anything." So I pulled in,
The idea of having another partner, and particularly if this other partner was Larry's wife, gave me some pause.
I can't believe how big some of the fish are. What are you feeding them? Filet mignon or something? Did you guys do the work?
Pretty much we did it ourselves. Yeah.
We had a contractor do the concrete and the framing, and then, we did it ourselves, but,
We had a
took
lot of help, though.
For heat, for the new addition, we did radiant electric in the floor, in the concrete, which is tied to the solar system.
Angie has a lot of experience in affordable housing and multifamily housing in general. And that's a very particular skill because it involves not just dealing with the client, but dealing with some very strict funding deadlines. As an example of that is Colorado Affordable Housing Project. We have a solar photovoltaic cell screen wall. The structural system required to hold that up is far simpler and therefore far cheaper. So you're dealing with finance, you're dealing with structure, and it's part of the aesthetic composition of the building.
Was a LEED gold building at a time when there was no rating system for residential or multifamily buildings. That was around 2000, I believe.
Yeah.
In the late 90s. We did this, at the time, was the only totally solar electric vehicle charging station. I just think it's really a question of ethics on what kind of materials you use, what kind of energy consumption. My mother would refer to it as Jewish common sense.
In terms of working relationship, I think what Larry brings with it is to not accept the status quo.
And Gwen has a good ability to see kind of clearly or to judge whether, we're doing the right thing or the wrong thing, or we're pushing too hard or not pushing enough. Now, don't get me wrong, Gwen's not, I guess if it's coming off that he's conservative, that would be far from the truth, and you could go look at the facts hanging up over my desk that basically says, if you're the Gwen Pugh that helped me burn down my college dormitory, please call. If not, sorry for bothering you.
Did you call?
I did, and I spoke with him. Mind you, he was the mad motorcyclist. We were working on motorcycles, which was how we managed to help burn it down, but hey, that's another story.
Sometimes it's really just like the movies.